Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining another episode of CXO-Talk. Vala, how you doing?
I'm doing well, Michael.
Oh, we're a little late today.
We are a little late.
So Vala, we're here with Paul Greenberg. But Vala, what's up? Why are we late? Come on.
You know, we just
Oh, this sucks. Come on.
we just came back from Boston, listening to Mark Benioff and team. A little jet lag, I guess.
A little jet lag and some technical issues. We're here with Paul Greenberg, who I think most people who are listening to this show probably know as having written the reference encyclopedia of CRM, and we often call Paul the godfather of CRM. Paul, how are you?
I'm good. I wasn't in Boston, though.
Although you and I spent most of this week together in New Orleans at Microsoft Convergence.
Yeah, that was quite an experience.
So Paul, you and I have known each other for a long time, and I figure since you're the guest, it's only polite for us to ask you, what would you like to talk about?
Let's see. We could talk Yankees baseball, Bostonians. We could talk hugging. We could talk CRM. We could talk. Oh yeah, there's an art to that. That's a whole. Michael's very aware of the whole story of that. We can talk current state of any vendor in the world that you'd like to know about, and when it comes to CRM, since I've just written about 38 of them. So you name it, and you fire the questions at me, and I'm right there.
Well, you turned that around very deftly. That's why he's the godfather.
Of course, I could always say
relationship management.
Or I could ask you guys questions.
Well, I'll tell you what. Let's talk for a moment about Convergence in Microsoft, since you and I just came back. So have any thoughts about that?
Yeah, actually quite a lot. You know, it's interesting. A lot of people were commenting when we were there that it was a lot, let's say, lot less flashy than last year, a little lower key, or a lot lower key. But actually, I saw that as a pretty good thing, to be honest. Last year, it was all user experience and Windows 8, and the big bet is being placed. You know, we're placing everything on blue, so to speak, and you know, they had to literally begin a process last year where they introduced a radical transformation of how people are going to interface with them, and also, by the way, from the business application side, a radical change in how they were going to handle business applications. This year, they had to show that they actually did something in the last year, right? And in fact, if you looked at it from just a simple standpoint of the prior year, the user experience stuff, the user interface was just there. It really wasn't discussed. It was just there. Now the thing is that what they did do, at least from the CRM perspective, is that ever since they brought in Bob Stutz, who's sort of, from the technology building standpoint, a legend in the enterprise software world, ever since they brought him in, he's pretty much ripped apart the entire set of applications, the architecture, the user interfaces, and filled holes in Microsoft Dynamics CRM. So on the biggest announcements as such became the hole fillings, right? One was they announced the acquisition of a Swiss company called NetBreeze, which is it's a sort of sentiment and social analytics platform, and they announced what they're going to do with it. Now, what's interesting about that, and this is really important actually, if they had bought NetBreeze and said, we're going to have a standalone application, they would have wasted their money. But what they're doing instead is they're actually going to incorporate it as a layer inside of the Microsoft Dynamics CRM platform and give it away with Microsoft Dynamics CRM, which is exactly what they should have done. They also talked a great deal about an acquisition they made just a few months ago called Marketing Pilot. And that, now, look, the big hole in the world of CRM suites almost everywhere has always been marketing. Yet marketing is now, finally, the hottest area of all of the, let's say, divisions and customer-facing pieces of CRM. So, Marketing Pilot, and this is really interesting, actually. Marketing Pilot is this really dense application, and that's the only way to describe it. It has like 8 million functions, at least.
Yeah, it's got a lot of pieces to it.
Well, there's a problem with that, actually. That's the thing with Marketing Pilot in that regard. I mean, it's a very good set of applications, but it's too much for a marketer, right? I mean, so what's going to have to happen, as far as I'm concerned, and I made this kind of clear, and I will make it clear when I write about it, is marketing, at least my way of dealing with it would be this. Right now they have a connector to Marketing Pilot? No. Okay, well, yes. I mean, it's okay to have it. But then what you do is you integrate Marketing Pilot fully into the suite, native integration, number one. Number two is unlocked are the basic marketing automation functionality that marketers need to do with their job. And then you have a series of premium services associated with unlocking the rest of the functionality. So as you need it, you can unlock it, pay for it, and unlock it. It's not really the model they use, and it would probably be a little difficult for them to do it, but to me, that's the way to make it the best. So on the whole, Microsoft's made some really good progress. Look, they've caught up. They've caught up with everyone else. They've caught up with Salesforce. They've caught up with Oracle. They've caught up with SAP. They've done all the things they got to do there. They've got about 6 months to really like rev it up right now. And given what we saw, their chances of doing it are actually pretty decent.
You know, the thing that I liked particularly was the customer focus, and I had spoken with them about that pretty intently before the show, and they really carried through. I mean, it was not about us and we're great. It was the emphasis was, here's what we're doing for our customers, and our customers are great. And it was that part was fantastic. Actually, you know, what that led to, you know, obviously, I know with some of your input, if I remember correctly, Kirill did that in his keynote. He actually talked about customers pretty directly. And secondly, the thing I thought actually, in a sense, was an offshoot of that was they had a really, really good customer panel for the analysts, right? I mean, it was actually one of the best customer panels I've ever heard. You know, and it was people from Revlon, Illinois Department of Corrections. I mean, it was a variety. I'm not going to go through everybody, but you know, the reality is it was a really smart panel. And the thing that was fascinating is they focused not on technology per se, except for one guy, but the others focused on outcomes. Exactly.
They focused on outcomes.
Sure.
That was the key thing. And so speaking of the customer, Vala and I attended this morning, I guess, Vala, what would you say? That it was like a kind of dry run for Dreamforce by Salesforce and Mark Benioff?
Yeah, you know, the theme is, as Mark spoke to the audience, about a shift towards really trying to describe how to become a customer company. And there are 7, you know, principles that he described in terms of becoming a customer company. But Michael, it was, you know, less about the technology and more about the benefits of, you know, listening, connecting, and really, you know, delivering service to customers.
What was the principles?
Well, this is the question. What is the principle? And the principle is, or to put it another way, what is the underlying unifying theme? Right? I guess that's another way of saying the same thing. And so the terminology that they're using is, we're the customer company.
Right.
And I spoke with Mark, and he said afterward, well, you know, SAP is known as the HANA company, and Oracle is known as the Exadata, Exalytics company, Exa company, and Microsoft is known as the Windows 8 company. This is Mark Benioff's comment. And so we're the customer company. But I don't know. See, I'm a little bit confused, because if you look at each of the Salesforce products, many of them are very strong. but it's this layering together and the positioning of it that still seems vague to me. But Vala, you were impressed, I think, right? I mean, you liked it.
No, I was impressed. I mean, I can't verbatim list the 7 elements, but Paul, they talked about, you have to be able to listen, you have to be able to service your customer wherever they are, and integrate a channel strategy. They talked about selling is a team sport, so sharing analytics and removing the silos within the business and leveraging technologies like Chatter to be able to have, real-time visibility into sales and services and marketing. Building communities, they really emphasized building communities as a core element. And again, they had some pretty impressive demonstrations. All of the demonstrations on smartphone, Android, and iOS to show that the world is mobile, the world is social, it's cloud-based. They demonstrated the presidential election and they had actual senior campaign staff talking about how they were able to respond in real time during the election and be able to, generate more votes and bring the community and galvanize the organization through the use of cloud. And they actually pointed to the other party who had a difficult time with an on-premise solution. And so combination of videos and mobile and really focusing on being a connected organization. I heard the word connected quite a bit. And to me, it felt like you have to be able to connect on the inside of the business successfully in order to be able to become a customer company and connect on the outside. So I was, the message certainly resonated with me.
They certainly, I mean, one thing, we were talking with Microsoft that they were bringing forth that customer point of view, and I think Salesforce does that really, really well. That's really
yeah, well, they always have. Although, I mean, nothing I just heard was new. But then again, when push comes to shove, ultimately, all 4 of the companies that Mark, including his own, that Mark was talking about, are still software companies at the heart of it, right? And their job is to enable stuff, right? So, and that's their job, right? So, how do I put it? All of them still have a lot to prove when it comes to the idea, and I mean all of them still have a lot to prove when it comes to the idea of being genuinely customer focused. When does it get beyond messaging, right? And then, how do they actually show that other than bringing out their customers? That's not really customer focused. That's, you customers use our technology, tell them about it, right? So the question and the challenge for them over the next few months is to show all, and again, this goes for all of them. In fact, it goes for every company in the software business, period, is to show what is it that actually makes you, what is it that you can point to, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that makes you genuinely a customer, not only a customer-facing company, but a company that actually puts the customer where they belong, which is as your partner, right? As opposed to your customer.
Right.
It's it's a very tough thing for almost all software companies to do that, because of course there are elements of the software company and the customer that are completely aligned. But at the same time, there is some divergence. I mean, the software company's goal is to generate revenue first and foremost, and so they're going to develop products and position products and so forth that achieves those goals. On the customer side, yes, they have to buy the product, but then they need to go through some type of deployment, some type of implementation process. So there's a significant gap between what the software vendor needs and what the customer needs, or what is optimal for the software vendor and what is optimal for the customer. And yet, at the same time, as I say that, I realize the SaaS vendors out there are yelling back at me, saying, "Well, no, in a subscription environment, a SaaS-based environment, that there is complete alignment." And I don't completely buy the fact that there's complete alignment. So Paul, any thoughts on this particular issue?
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a number of things to look at. I mean, on the one hand, if you look at the idea of what what a customer values versus what a company values. A company's values is determined by profitability and revenue and making your shareholders happy and doing those sorts of things. A customer at an individual level, before we get into, because a B2B customer has the same interest as a company does, because for the most part, but there's a whole nuance to it. But on the B2C side, when it's coming to an individual customer, what they value is being valued, right? And that's pretty much it. I mean, you know, I've had this definition of CRM that I never actually written in the book or anything, but I've always said, and I always write in some posts, which is the simplest definition in the world, which is if a customer likes you and continues to like you, they'll continue to do business with you. If they don't, they won't. That's it. That's CRM, right? That's all it's about. It's basically CRM's job is to figure out how to make that happen, right? And how to make that continue.
So CRM is about love. I interrupted you, and I'm sorry.
No, you're right. Peace and love. Well, not peace sometimes, but not between the vendors. But
is that a bizarre thing for us to be talking about here? We're talking about CRM, and at the core essence from a technology standpoint, you just described the essence of CRM from the customer standpoint and from an emotional standpoint. Sure. But from a technology standpoint, you know, CRM is about names and databases.
Caring more. Yeah, sure.
You know, but it doesn't matter. What's the purpose of the names in the databases, right? To gather information about these customers so that you know something about them, so you can figure out what to do with them, right? I mean, or you know, to prevent your company from being hit by lawsuits and compliance problems, right? I mean, it's one or the other, really. I mean, it's, you know, I'm obviously oversimplifying, but you know, the reality is that you know, even look, how do I put this? Because even though right now when we look at things like the so-called social stuff, that's all mainstream. It's part of the way the thing, you have to consider it. A study was done by B2B Magazine that found that 96% of all marketers have some sort of interactions with social as part of their work, right? So it's there. However, you go back and it triggered because what we always call unstructured data or conversations are actually like human beings talking, right? I mean, that's what this is about. And it's actual, like, it's emotional. That's why the rise of what's sentiment analysis is all about, trying to interpret all that stuff and figure out how to utilize it on a large scale so that you can analyze it and get some insight. So you have this emotional. Now we're seeing, of course, that's triggered this whole rush to Sutter's Mill again, I guess, to mine the new gold of customer experience, which is not a new gold. It's been around for as long as CRM's been around. It's been around, right? In fact, at the core, I remember back in 2001, when the first edition of CRM Speed of Light came out. I went back and actually looked at this when all of a sudden I saw everybody trumpeting customer experience, except instead of an E, it's now an X, right? So, you know, and I went back to the book and I looked at the chapters, the very first chapters, and I actually got to page, literally, in the introduction, page XVII, right? And there I had my first definition of CRM, which said, it's a system that's designed to improve the experience of the customer with the company.
Absolutely.
And I wasn't the first one to say all that. So,
absolutely.
Well, Vala, you know, you're in charge of here at your company, Interisys. You're responsible for customer service and also marketing. And if we listen to the definition that Paul was just describing, there must be some connection between those two things that touches at a deep level the things he was just describing.
I view CRM as a core building block necessary to have a successful, you know, experience management strategy. So to me, it's a key component. And you know, as I read the fourth edition of CRM at the speed of light, when I think about and by the way, I mean, literally, I would say the Bible of CRM.
It's an amazing book.
If you're in a CRM business and you don't have this book, then you're not really in the CRM business.
I actually thought you kept that on your desk as a weapon.
I'm actually getting a workout holding it, but it's so much wisdom. But you know, you Paul, you mentioned social, and in this book, you talk about, is it time for us to reconsider Net Promoter Score? Is that the right question to ask? Is counting the number of advocates the right way to and you also mentioned 4 companies need to really prove what it means to be a customer company. So, you know, I'd like to ask, you know, is the new Net Promoter Score a social promoter score where you know who's recommending, you know who they're recommending to, and you can follow all of that and determine whether these folks become your customer? So, you know, I'd like to hear your thoughts about, you know, especially in this social world where you can pop a Radian 6 into your framework and really get some rich analytics in terms of who's saying what about you and what's the outcome.
So that's sort of multifaceted.
There was a question there somewhere. Value of Net Promoter Score.
Well, here's the thing. You know, we talked earlier about businesses have one idea of what they have to value and customers have another. Well, the interesting thing for all of us, the ones who are trying to work all this through, is to translate the two so that there's sort of a normalized way of dealing with all of it. Now, one way that we're beginning to see, and this is something that I was kind of blown away by about 2 years ago, really, before we were hearing that much about customer service again. One thing beginning to see, one thing I saw is there's a professor down at Georgia State University. Name is Dr. V. Kumar. Everyone calls him VK. So VK wrote a book called Managing Customers for Profit. He also, by the way, wrote an incredibly good CRM textbook. Second edition is incredibly good. I actually spent the money to buy it because I figured I'd learn something. $50 too. It's more expensive than my book, right? So anyway, this guy, before I get into what he did, and which goes right to the heart of what you're talking about, and also to the heart of this kind of normalization. This guy is years ago. You remember there was a study from Harvard Business School, and as it worked out, it was him on the correlation of profitability to loyalty. And the answer was it was mediocre to fair, meaning, you know, loyal customers knew A, demanded more because they were loyal, and B, knew how to game the system. So loyal customers weren't terribly profitable ones. Okay, that became like an iconic study, and he did that one. All right. So in this book, he indirectly addresses NPS. Look, NPS was fine for its time. Its time is over. Okay, and the reason its time is over, and you'll understand when I get to the nitty-gritty of this. All right. I want you to keep in mind with NPS the question, okay? You know, the actual, would you recommend this company to someone you know? All right, hold that thought. So what Kumar does in Managing Customers for Profit is he decides he's going to go at this from the standpoint of customer lifetime value, which, you know, is, from those who may or may not know or listening, is essentially how much this household of this person is going to be worth to a company over whatever lifetime they deem as a lifetime. All right. He says no, because the world is different and we have networks and we have social and we have all these other things, we have to extend lifetime value because that's a much truer interpretation of a customer's value if we extend it. And the same way we extend CRM in social CRM, we extend customer lifetime value, we add another metric called customer referral value. Now, here's the key now, and this is where we get to the NPS and the end of it as we know it.
Is this indirect referral? I mean, is this
what?
Is this indirect referral, the value?
Yes, exactly what it is. Well, it's indirect impact. It's direct referral, but indirect impact.
Got it.
All right, so the idea is that there are 4 questions that help you determine CRV. Question 1 is, would you recommend this company to someone you know. But question 2, when I heard it, I went like, oh my God, or OMG, of course. And then I went, duh, how could I not have figured this out?
All right, so what is it?
Right? What it is anyway, either you guys got a guess? If you have heard me talk about it, then you can't guess.
I'm a lousy guesser.
All right.
I have a sense what it is, but I'm going to let you tell us.
Question 2 is, did you recommend this company to someone you know? See what I mean?
Yes,
The NPS is based on intent, which has nothing to, ultimately, that's not a measure of advocacy.
An action.
Right. It's the action that shows the advocate, right? That's why I always have been one of these people who says, no, when I keep hearing this thing, which at this point I'm starting to consider moronic, the first step in first step with your customer is listening. No, the first step is actually acting. The listening is the prequel to action.
It makes perfect sense.
It makes perfect sense.
It's
so
brilliant.
that's question
It's
2.
Once you realize it, once you hear it.
Yeah, well, that's the point. And he did I'll tell you the numbers in a second. But question 3 was, and this is where you start tying revenue and you start bringing the company side in. Question 3 was, did they become a customer? And question 4 was, were they a profitable customer? And those 4, so he asked these questions of 15,000 people, mostly in financial services and telco. It was a 6-9 split in the thousands, but I don't remember which was which. So he found from question 1 to question 2, 34% did. So what's an NPS score of 9 even mean? If only 1/3 of the people are actually doing anything other than saying, yeah, I'll do it.
Although on the other hand, the NPS score is very simple. It's very easy to understand. The 4 questions that you just described obviously have a great deal of complexity associated with them. And at the same time, if you ask that NPS question consistently across a broad number of people, then you can make the assumption that differences in those scores, if it's being asked consistently, differences in the scores reflect some underlying different reality. Right. And so therefore...
No argument. No argument. I agree totally. Look, NPS isn't useless. It's just not useful, right? I guess that's the best way to put it. Meaning it has value for a broad referential purpose, and it has value for marketing, right? And it does. When you hear the Oklahoma City Thunder, I remember the guy said in his presentation that when they were winning, they had an NPS score of 91.2, but when they were 3-29, they had an NPS score of 86, which was amazing.
Let's talk about them for a second, because I had a lengthy conversation with the person, and I keep forgetting his title, but it's like VP,
Vice President of Sales,
and Retention and Database Operations, or something like that.
Vice President of everything.
Pretty much VP of everything, exactly. And so I did a video interview with him, and we spoke for about an hour. And the amazing thing about them is that is an organization that loves its customers.
Yes.
And they have the lifeblood of any professional sports team is the season ticket holders.
Yep.
And they have a backlog of season ticket holders, and as far as I can see from what he said, that backlog is not correlated to whether the team is winning or losing.
Oh yeah, no, but that's not surprising. Look, I mean, let's take your home base there, man. A Red Sox fans not correlated to winning or losing. They may yell and scream, but they still fill Fenway Park for the most part.
That's true.
Same thing.
That's true.
Fans are fans. Look, the thing with the Oklahoma City Thunder, honestly, you know who else is like that? I actually several years ago, I did a case study of the Philadelphia Flyers, who have this amazing program. And interestingly enough, coincidentally, this morning, I updated everything. I called them, I talked to them for a couple hours and got it all fixed up and got updated, because I'm doing this presentation. I'm keynoting Sugar CRM's conference in New York in April. And they want me to do one on customer experience, so I'm and the flyers are great, but my data was so old it wasn't worth it. So I updated everything, and it's still amazing and even better what they're doing. But the thing that's fast, look, again, when you really dig in this, it's always emotional. It always is emotional. The Oklahoma City Thunder loves their fans. They do. I mean, they really do. And the reason that you got it, but it's because you got guys like Scott Loft there, right, who are going to actually pay attention and work hard toward it.
But it's not just, the interesting thing about them is it's not just him, the individual,
right.
and I queried him about this quite a bit. It starts with the chairman of the board, I believe Mr. Bennett, I believe is his name.
Yeah, it's with a W something, W something Bennett, Walter Bennett.
Yeah, and so it starts with him, and it filters and diffuses down through the organization. And so, getting back to that initial conversation that we were having earlier about software companies and software companies being customer companies, so to speak, across the industry, compare the attitude of most software companies towards their customers. And now I'll generalize, but I think, and tell me if you disagree, but I think for most software companies, they see the customer as a pot of gold.
Yeah, well, it's basically the object of a sale. That's the way I always call it, yeah.
All right, so the same thing. So the object of a sale. Whereas you spoke, when you talk with the Thunder, it's like they love the customer and they want to create a great experience.
Well, they're sort of the best example of something that we always talk about, but we don't see as often as we'd like, which is they're actually fans too. Right, I mean that's the other side. They understand who and what they are, and they root for the team that they're associated with for the most part. And like when the Microsoft owns the sports world when it comes to customers. So I was meeting with Scott Jeffrey from the Yankees, and when he was born, he was a Mets fan, but now he's a major Yankees fan.
He was born a Mets fan.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, that's the way it is in New York. There is a genetic code built into any New Yorker, and you're either born a Mets fan or a Yankees fan. If you're not born a fan, then you move to New Jersey very quickly.
We're going to have to soon. We're going to have to wrap this up. But I know Vala, you've been working closely with the Patriots, and it's the same with Fred. Right? It's the same thing over there.
I'm sorry for
absolutely.
that, by the way.
I have the privilege of delivering solutions to the Celtics and the Patriots, and they both absolutely love their fans and their organizations, and most of the employees there, including the CIO and the CDO, were fans, before. Rabid fans. I mean, right? Unbelievable. I mean, they sleep, live, breathe their organization. And, I know, Paul, that for at least, I think you started in 2011, but I may be wrong, for the last couple of years, you and a group of experts, you have your CRM Idol competition. And you look at all these organizations, these innovative companies that are building CRM solutions of all sizes, enterprise, big, all the way to small startups. And you can go to crmidol.com to see the past winners and the different categories, and it's quite an incredible site to learn about innovation in CRM. My question is there a common characteristic for the past winners whereby they're leveraging innovation and building a CRM solution that can help bolster the love that you speak of in terms of a vendor really connecting to the end customer? Is there a common one or two traits of the previous winners? And I know our listeners would love to hear, especially vendors that are working in the CRM space.
It's a little hard to say that. The problem we're dealing with there is we're dealing with really small companies. I mean, there's a requirement. The largest company's top revenue of a prior fiscal year is basically $11,999,999.99. I mean, that's the most they can possibly make. And when you get down to that level, it tends to be highly individualized in terms of what the companies do. So, but what was interesting, what we see that's kind of interesting with the competition is we see trends that happen. So year one, We saw all kinds of social customer service and, that sort of thing. This last year, we saw content marketing all over the place.
Oh, wow.
And so what you better, even though there's nothing that makes them terribly necessarily customer friendly one way or the other, like probably and keep in mind, part of the winning is being judged on a video. And it's like if your video has some good content and it's somewhat funny, you're going to win, right? So, but the interesting thing is that the trends that are reflected are actually trends that indicate the increasing, let's say, increasing amount of right-brainedness requirements that exist out there, the emotional and behavioral stuff. And you're seeing that, and so the customer it's at least the Joe Pine version of authenticity, which is, which is, let's call it more sincerity than it is authenticity.
Right. Are they all thinking mobile first with this explosion of BYOD and is that a trend that's prevalent in the last few years?
Yeah, well, the answer is yes, but very few of them actually. It's only the more seasoned companies that actually have the really good mobile apps. The others all have them in their roadmaps, though. Mobile is pretty much pervasive with every smaller company that we run across.
Got it.
One thing with CRM Idol is, as one of your extended judges who views these videos, it does become challenging, and you and I have discussed this, it does become challenging because you want to you need to look at the video and evaluate how good is the product, how good is the company, how strong is their vision, how strong is their roadmap, and at the same time you're viewing a video with certain production values and video creation skill. And so from a judging standpoint, you have to kind of balance that. And have any advice for me as one of your judges?
Yeah, well, no, you're right. I mean, the thing, and you'll see adjustments for that. I mean, one of the things we did, for example, initially to prevent that from, look, I mean, when push comes to shove, some of these companies have a lot of money because they've got VC capital behind them. Some of them don't. So we limited it to a $7,000 expense for the video. And, then the other, I think almost every one of them, with one or two, I can't imagine any of them really, hired professionals to film the videos. Although one of them was, I won't say who, but was so bad that I can't imagine a professional doing it ever.
There's no way. I know which one you're talking about. By the way, there was in that one of the differences, which is I think relates back to this customer love, is that video spoke ego to me.
That's right. You are exactly right.
And so, to me, one of the part of the DNA of a true customer company or customer-focused company, meaning that they place not mobile first but customer first, because ultimately that's what matters, is the lack of ego, which is to say putting the customer needs first.
Right.
Sure.
Right. I mean, I think that's a key attribute.
Sure.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. It's critical. I mean, I guess the only way to put this is, this whole thing is about, I mean, a business is an organized group of people, right? And the reality is every person in this universe, in this planet anyway, is self-interested. And it's not a bad thing to be self-interested. It's a good thing, meaning we all have like an idea of how we want to be happy, right? We have a way we want to get to it. Doesn't mean we're going to get it to it that way, but at least we have, that's what a dream is, right? We have a way that we'd like to get to a place to be happy. And we'd like to be able as people, as individuals, to control our own lives. Not anyone else's, unless we're, a dictator, but to control our own life, right? And the thing is that even in a business, it's all still that. And that if a company is smart, they're going to think, okay, well, our job is to do as much as we can to give people the ability to control how they deal with us and provide them with what they need so that they can be happy with us, which will make them happy with themselves, right? As long as you let them determine the level of interaction, the level of, and provide them with the tools and the products and the services and the consumable experiences, they're going to feel really good about you, you know, and maybe at a certain point they leave you, well, they leave you. But ultimately it's still based on this whole idea of just really happy, being happy. And, you know, that's what kills me about all this stuff. We throw out so many damn buzzwords about so many things all the time, and yet, you know, all we're really looking for is friends, right? And we want, you know what my operant slogan is, I guess? A company like me. Now, no company's going to actually be like me, but I just want to feel that this company, in a sense, is my buddy, right? Meaning they'll do the things I need. They'll give me the things I need to have the kind of interaction I want with them. And you can do that en masse. That's what all the tools we're talking about are about. It allows you to do it en masse, meaning individually en masse. So if you're doing it well. So it's all that. It's behavior, it's emotion, it's life. It's life in general, man. It's just life.
So Paul, this question I'm going to ask you, we may have to devote an entire show to because
we're going to have to wrap
it's
up.
critically important, but I'm going to ask anyway because I'm so curious because I heard you mention at the beginning of the show there's a science to hugging. So in maybe 30 seconds or 60 seconds, I need to know the secret because with customer love, if you can't hug right, then this whole technology thing is being wasted. So please.
You know, Michael's one of my best students. I want you to know. he achieved professional level at Convergence. I'm living proof. His hug was outstanding.
Are we going to see a book hugging at the speed of
hugging at the speed of air? So it's like it's a very simple thing. Okay, women, there's never a problem. They know how to hug. It's almost like because they're not ashamed, particularly of hugging. But here's the thing: when you hug a person, when you hug a guy, right? And when a guy hugs a guy, especially, I always make sure, even if I won't say it's the first time I meet them, but sometimes it is. Look, I hug Bob Stutz, okay, Special Forces for 20 years, and he's proactively hugging back.
And he's a big guy, too.
Yeah, he actually will come to me with his arms out, okay? So that's what I'm saying. So he gets it. But here's the thing. The way guys tend to do it when they don't know how, and this is, you learn by the not here, the negative, is that they do this half grab around the neck and half bro hug, you know, this bro chest bump thing, and it comes out the worst of both, right? It's horrible. It's like terrible. It's like you feel like, what the hell are you? I mean, it's like you have no idea what this person's trying to do, except that you just know it didn't work. You just know that they're only doing it because you're pushing it.
All right, tell us how to do it.
It's a very simple way. It's known as don't be afraid to close, right? Number one, move in.
That's sales
and number
advice.
two, throw your arms around the person and squeeze. It's not very hard. Now, you got to limit it in certain ways, and each individual is different. The signature hugs, which we can discuss on another show, right? But the key is it's strong, right? You close and go strong around. If I wasn't holding this phone, I could show you, but I am.
But I got it.
But and you can't be afraid, and you can't sit there and think, "Oh, what are they going to think?" Right? Which is why men do that thing.
No, we're good
right now.
We're good.
Right now.
I'm going to hopefully see you at the Gartner 360 Summit, and I'll be practicing to make sure it's got to be an authentic, full-blown bear hug, and don't forget to close. I'll definitely practice.
Perfect.
All right, and on that note, a full-blown bear hug, and don't forget to close. And that is my advice, channeling the master, Paul Greenberg, to software vendors. Paul, is that good advice?
Way to go. I like that one.
Yeah,
nice.
That was a
nice
great
work. Nice
That's how we
work.
go. And I have to thank, Paul, you and I have been friends for a long time, and you have been an advisor and a mentor and one of my best friends. And
Same.
so it's a delight to do this with you.
You guys are just awesome. You really are. You're totally awesome. That's all I could.
And this is how you do a hug, sort of
through the screen. Through the screen.
No, you just wrap it like see, you can't even.
And so now, are you late to pick up Yvonne from where?
No, actually, she's still up in Newfoundland, but I won't go into that one right now.
All righty. Sure. Paul, thank you so much.
Thank you guys, really for having me.
Yeah,
it's absolutely mutual. It really is.
And Vala, I wish you the best.
Thank you, sir.
And of course,
I love that part.
We'll be hugging after the show.
Yeah, after the show, we're going to practice this up.
Send me some pictures.
And everybody, I want to thank you for tuning in and joining us today. Next week, 4 o'clock Eastern Time, Friday, we're going to be here. This is it. Thanks. Bye-bye.